Hello, and welcome to Smash Writing. This is, unfortunately, I can't believe it, our very first 2024 movie review of the year. There was car issues on my part. Paulie couldn't make them. So, somehow, our first 2024 movie review is in March, and is for the movie Imaginary. A movie that, while I did want to go see, kinda had some low expectation. Blumhouse never really does it for me. I know some people love their movies. At best, they've been meh and downright terrible for me. I'm not the biggest Blumhouse fan. So, here's hoping that Imaginary would change things around. Let's dive into it and find out if they could, shall we? This movie opens up with Jessica being chased by something. She's grabbed up by this guy who's clearly looking possessed by some entity. And he chases her into this room, and mid-chase, he starts turning into this Cthulhu-like spider. I know later on that we learn it's her nightmarish version of her own cartoon spider. But man, looking at this thing, it's like Cthulhu spider reborn. She breaks into her room. She's trying to wake this guy up, but she ends up waking up when it catches up to her. And her husband Max talks her into it. She's like, we're planning on moving into your old family house anyways, because her mom has passed away and her dad is mentally unwell and in a home at this point. And she's going to be, her and her family are moving into the old family house. And he talks her into moving in a few days early, because all that's need to be done is painting, and he can keep the girls away from that. We get an opening title montage of her when she was a kid in the house, and then we join up with the family now. And you have Jessica, Max, teenage daughter Taylor. Yes, Taylor, not Taylor, and the little girl Alice. And we learn that they're Jessica's stepkids, and their mom is mentally unwell and caused real bad burns on Alice, and it's emotionally scarred her, damaged her arm and everything, and she's still reeling from that. But she is starting to bond with Jessica over the fact that Jessica drew all over the walls when she was a kid, and the promise of being able to do that herself. But Taylor comes in and cuts the legs out right from under her, being the cliche grouchy teen who doesn't like stepmom routine kind of deal. I'm like, oh no, selling in for that bullshit. But we learned that Jessica is a cartoonist. She writes and draws kid stories, and she's sort of writer blocked on the new stories, so she takes a bit of a break to play a game of hide and seek with Alice, but has to stop the game kind of halfway. She sneaks out to take a business call, and Alice follows the sounds downstairs in the basement, and where we meet Chauncey Bear and her new imaginary friend. And feeling bad, Jessica does try to restart the game, but Alice just as Chauncey does not have time for this shit anymore. But at first, everyone is kind of happy because Chauncey's making her happy, and it's been a while since they've seen her this happy. It's even given Jessica the idea of what to write about, because she overhears the conversation between Alice and Chauncey, and it gives her a spark of an idea. Meanwhile, while Alice is busying herself with the scavenger hunt Chauncey has made up for her, Taylor meets the neighbor boy next door, and Jessica has a run-in with the creepy lady Gloria next door, the next door neighbor, while Max is leaving for a few days to do a tour. And the Gloria mentions that she used to babysit Jess, and Jessica had an imaginary friend too. And this sparks some memories, so she decides she wants to go off and talk to her dad, and leaves Taylor in charge of Alice. We learn there that her dad's got some form of early onset dementia or something wrong with him. He doesn't even recognize her at first until she mentions that she's moved back into the house. And then he freaks out because he does not like the idea of her living there, and he starts just yelling the word CB over and over again. And she goes home to find The neighbor boy freaking out, he'd been attacked by Chauncey. And Taylor invited him over, not expecting him to bring drugs. And she doesn't partake, which is a good thing because as it turns out those drugs are allergy pills he swiped from his mom. But, while Taylor's trying to explain herself in the situation, while they walk up to Jessica's art studio, they find one of the pictures had their head cut off. So she goes to talk to Alice, and we get this heartwarming speech she gives to who she thinks is Alice. It turns out it's Chauncey Bear. And Alice is in the backyard about to impale her hand on a nail because the last step in her scavenger hunt is something that hurts. She just manages to stop her, and she does get a bit of a scratch on her arm. And she is ready to throw in the towel. She's called Max, and she can't handle it. She thought she could, but they send over Alice's psychologist to talk instead. And that goes about as well as expected. And this is the point where we get a twist. I'm not going to talk about the twist. I'm not going to talk about the twist in the review. I'm just going to say the twist was stupid. But this sends her off a bit, and Alice makes up with Chauncey, and she's going to finish the scavenger hunt, which turns out to be a ritual that can open a door, and she can go to his world and see him there, which succeeds. And Jessica and Taylor are scrambling to try to find her and what happened, and Taylor has to be convinced by Gloria that this is all, in fact, very real. So the three of them, Jessica, Taylor, and Gloria, reenact the ritual and get into the imaginary land, where they're betrayed almost immediately by Gloria, who'd been talking to the imaginary friend, Chauncey, ever since Jessica escaped. And what really happened to her dad was he went insane because he looked into the eyes and saw the imagination of thousands of children. Which was a bit silly, but I'll give it to you. But Gloria is immediately taken out after she comes out as a villain, and they manage to find Alice and get her out, except they didn't. The two girls escaped, but Jessica is still trapped inside. And she's willing to just submit to their will as long as they don't go after Alice and Taylor. But Taylor isn't having this either, and she cracks the one in the face with her hockey stick. Together, they manage to make it to the door. Alice catches the monster on fire, and she catches the house on fire, and the movie ends with the three of them safely out of the house, watching the house go up in flames. Alright, let's pro and con this movie, shall we? Pros, I think, the biggest pro in this movie, I think, are the actors. I think everyone played their roles perfectly. Piper Brown, especially with the job she did with Alice, having to play this emotionally damaged character of Alice, who went through something horrible with her mom and had been on fire. And I think she did a really great job expressing this through her body language and the way she acted and the way she held herself. And especially whenever she would be near fire and how she'd flinch up and just back away from it. Which, understandable in her circumstances. And for such a small kid, I'm not gonna, oh, they're terrible. No, I think she did a really good job. DeWanda DeWise, again, with playing Jessica, the stepmom, who's really trying her hardest to be there for the girls. She's not trying to replace their mother. She's just trying to be that person in their lives that can help them through this. I think DeWanda did an excellent job as that. Then we got to talk about Tegan Burns, who was, Tegan. Tegan? God, one day. I thought she did a really good job as Taylor at points. And this is kind of what hampers her and a little bit of this movie is the script writing needed some work and the dialogue needed some work. With Tegan, she is fiercely after Jessica. She does not like Jessica. She's got that, like I said, she's got that I don't like my stepmom routine going on. And she is butting heads with her. And she looks like she's fiercely devoted to her little sister. Until we get the teen boy in the picture, and she just clams up when teen boy is insulting um, Alice right in front of Taylor, and then the moment that's done, she's back to butting heads and being a badass character who's willing to go through hell to save her sister. And the script just does stuff like that, where scene doesn't make sense, but they need to have that happen so this can happen. So we just have to ignore the characters and everything. And it happens with one of Jessica's points where she gives a heartfelt speech to who she thinks is Alice, but they didn't really earn that moment, and she's ready to throw in the towel because of one bad day? That's insane, and it wouldn't happen. Her character's not built that way. She's pretty much willing to work as hard as she can for these girls and not going to give up because of one bad moment. It's kind of insane, but they need that scene to happen because they need her to talk about her own scars and get that out. And they just wedged it on in there. I feel like they really needed to overhaul the script a little bit, even add some time to it if that's what it needed. I'm not gonna talk about what the twist is. I wasn't a huge fan of it. It was kind of stupid. It kind of felt like you guys just want to do a twist to do a twist, even if it added nothing. And see, I have thoughts about that too, but I'm not gonna talk about it. Not gonna talk about it. I just have some thoughts because I think their definition of what this is very flawed. And I didn't bite on the fake escape either. I've seen too many of these movies. You're not going to get me on that. And the one little flaw I'd have to say, the big buggy eyes they had in the one scene, like that looked silly. Because it just looked like they were stung by bees. All in all, though, I know I talked a lot of bad things about this movie and all. I'm still going to give this movie a B minus, though. And I know that may seem weird, but I'm giving this a B minus because of how good the actors were. I really believed at times, even both the dialogue and clunkiness. This does have a clunkiness to it, and the dialogue needed work. But the actors had such great chemistry, and there is a lot to enjoy. I did find myself enjoying this movie quite a bit, despite all of its flaws. So, I feel good saying this is a B minus. Maybe don't go run out to the theater to see this. Check it out, though, on DVD or when it comes to streaming. Check it out yourself. And with that, that brings us to a close. Have a good day. Bye-bye.